me is I'm running for Congressional District 4, the seat currently occupied by Tom Cole. I'm seeking the Democratic nomination for that seat. In June of 2026 is when we're going to have the primary, and after having that primary, I'm going to take on Tom Cole. I retired from the United States Air Force on the 1st of September of 2025, so was that 70 days ago? And I did that for the express purpose of running for this seat. I wasn't supposed to retire this year. I was supposed to retire in 2026, but in early 2025, when the President fired the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he fired the Admiral that runs the Navy, fired the lawyers that make sure all the orders that come down to colonels like me were constitutional, I realized I was at a crossroads, and I had no choice. If I were to uphold my oath of office, I had no choice but to find a way to be active in running our government, and I couldn't do that while on active duty for obvious and very defensible reasons. So I decided to retire, and during the 200 days between that decision and my actual retirement date, I quickly came to the conclusion that the best use of my time would be to seek office myself, not because there weren't other people that were qualified to do it, but we just had not, as the NCC4, had a history of credible candidates throwing their hats in the ring. And I decided that the most important thing would be to get someone that Oklahomans could trust into that seat. So that's the reason I'm here today and not down on campus at OU teaching Air Force ROTC cadets about the Constitution and about the oath of office, because that was my job, to prepare them to lead the Air Force that I would retire from. It's every morning now I wake up as a military retiree with a new sense of purpose that really competes with my sense of purpose I had while I was in active duty going into combat. This is that important to me. Upholding this oath is the most important thing in my life right now, and I'm just thrilled to be here. So I will pause there to give you a chance to tell me how it should go and how much time it takes, because you bet me before you know, if you put a quarter in me, I'm going to talk.
What happened yesterday, the government opened. I know there was a lot of people hurting and they needed to be helped. A lot of the government employees were getting furloughs and cuts. I'm torn between helping them and what's going to happen to us retirees. If they cut Medicare and Medicaid and our premiums skyrocket, so your thoughts on that?
Well, I think anybody who's not torn like you are is not trying to analyze this. It's that the people who are not torn don't appreciate the complexity of this and are not being serious about coming up with solutions. So my most broad statement is all hostage situations are bad. And this was a hostage situation that was created by our government because it's dysfunctional, because more than a year ago, they made decisions that created a ticking time bomb, as they want to do now, to put us in a situation where someone would have to leave. So I think it's telling that the 8 Democrats who linked in this case, none of them are either leaving office or they're not up for re-election in 2026. That suggests to me that they know how unfortunate this is. There are people suffering, not getting a paycheck. I have a son, my son-in-law, my daughter's husband is in the Air Force, and that they might not get paid was alarming to them. I went through a couple shutdowns myself, but I never missed a paycheck. But there are people out there who did not get paychecks. Air traffic controllers did not get paychecks. And if you know anything about air travel, you probably want those folks to be undistracted by the problems at home. So there was real risk in this shutdown. So I think it certainly needed to end. The reason I'm most concerned about it is the promises that are being made about taking action on or taking votes on those things to protect the folks whose ACA premiums are about to skyrocket, protecting or revisiting Medicare and Social Security under threat. The promises that are made to hold votes or to work on this are being made by people who have not acted in good faith in a long time, and who have demonstrated a willingness, almost a joy in tricking the Democrats into blinking. So I'm not optimistic that the votes that are going to come are going to come out our way. More alarmingly, and this speaks to kind of one of the reasons I'm running for office, there are some things that they're going to vote on that, for example, the mandating that the government, the executive branch pay people that were furloughed. Any language in these bills that tells the president what to do, it is extremely likely the president is going to say, you can't make me do that. And we have a Supreme Court that has proven themselves completely willing to defer to the executive branch. So I'm not, even if Congress does the right thing, which I'm hesitant to believe, even if they do, I think to score political points or to save money or to save face, the executive branch might not do the right thing, and we may get only a partial victory if it turns out. So I'm torn as you are, and I think the details are to emerge later this week when the vote happens. We'll see. But I also, House representatives have to take action now too. And there's an upside to that because they have to go into real session. Means Representative Hall will be sworn into office, and some other second and third order effects to that, which we can talk about if you want to talk about, will open up. But I'm extremely dismayed at the dysfunction of the government, and this is a symptom of a larger problem. And I was talking to Scott earlier before we started. One of the reasons I'm so confident in the future if we are successful is the number of folks with military experience, with civil service experience, with government experience as executors of the mission that are now leaning towards politics for the purpose of stopping of leading and rebuilding some structures and closing loopholes is founded upon our history, my 35 years in the Air Force, where I was not permitted to fail. It was not like, okay, if you don't get it, we'll just shut down this operation. No, you have to do a mission. And I think the more veterans, the more folks with backgrounds in service where you have no option but to find a way to compromise, find a way to get the mission accomplished, and kind of end the world where you get your way, right? Where somebody comes out with all the chips and somebody loses. That kind of only winners and losers exist approach is really leading to the dysfunction. So that's a really long answer to the question, and it's probably not satisfactory, but I got it off my chest.
Any other questions?
I was just going to say how your preliminary fundraising and door knocking, or how's that been, and how much have you been able to?
So the fundraising, so I have not begun knocking on doors yet because that costs money and needs a volunteer base that we're not quite ready to execute on. The fundraising was okay. It's not what I had, what I fantasized about when I had my first fundraiser. There's a couple reasons for that. Number one is name recognition is the name of the game. And because I was active duty military and I was not a politically active person until September 1st at midnight, I started from zero. In fact, when I met people, I say I'm running for Congress, like I'd never heard of you. Like, well, a month ago, that was a good sign, and I was doing the right thing. I was following the rules, which is crazy that that's a bragging. So we're working on name recognition, and I've seen more and more responses from folks and like meet people. They say they've heard of me. Our first quarter was really only 1 month, October, which we raised about $14,000 in that first 30 days, which is not a lot of money. Especially so the other day, Missouri congressman who's a podcaster threw his hat in the ring to run in Missouri, and his name is Fred Wellman. He talked about having a pretty good first month. We raised $250,000. But I'm confident that we are going to get there for a couple reasons. One, because this is my full-time job. I don't have to split my time doing something else, and being out there and meeting folks and getting folks to at least consider the possibility, and then talk to their friends. It'll be truly grassroots. I don't have $1 million in the bank. In fact, if I had $1 million in the bank, I still wouldn't spend it on the campaign because money in politics is part of the problem. So I've self-limited my own contribution to my campaign to $3,500, which is the federal donation limit, because I don't believe in people buying elections. I don't think I'm going to regret that decision. It should make my work harder, but every time my job gets harder, my whole career, every time the job gets harder, I'm remotivated to work harder. So I can live with that. And then social media is the other thing. My social media presence was zero before I retired because I wasn't into into it, and I don't like it. I think social media is a poison for our country, and it's part of the problem. But it's a necessary evil in politics. So I have social media accounts now, and I'm trying to get the word out. But the truth is, the way social media algorithms work, what seems like popularity is often a mirage, and I don't give it any credit. So likes and follows online are not the thing I'm looking for. I'm looking for eyeball contact with people, and people nod when I talk, and my ask of them is generally number one, tell a friend, number two, write a check, and if you can do both, that's even better. So we're off to a good start. We have 200 days until the primary. I do have a declared opponent, and I wouldn't be sitting here if I wasn't convinced I'm a far better candidate. So there's going to be a competition along the way, but I'm not panicking about time. If anything, the timing of this campaign is really beginning earlier than average for a primary, certainly in Oklahoma, where this has not been a contested seat, realistically like a genuine contested seat in more than a decade.
All right, do we have any other questions?
Naturally, everybody around this table is not happy with what's going on in this country. I'm 87 years old, and I've seen a lot of things. What kind of negative? Because if you talk to us and say, "Hey, yeah, we'll pat you on the back, we love you, and we're trying to give you some money," what about the negative? What are you seeing in that area?
Yeah, you bet. So for the camera, the question was what when I talk to folks who are not kind of a curated audience of baked-in supporters for my cause, what kind of negative stuff do I see? The two most common things are, in reverse order of how often I see them. The second most common thing is this is an unwinnable race. You're crazy for doing this. You can't win. I hear that from some folks on our side, but a lot of Republicans like Tom Cole. Everybody loves Tom Cole, or he's very popular. He's very rich, and those are true statements. In fact, I've heard a lot of people say he's a good man. Oh, great. That's a nice cherry on top if you're also a good legislator and a good public servant. But I'm not going to pick being a good person over being a good public servant. So I disagree with the unwinnability of this race for two reasons. One, because I think the momentum in our country is shifting. I think people are starting to feel the pain of terrible policies that have been implemented, and they're ready for a change. And what happened in New York, New Jersey, Virginia, in Detroit, all those things are signals that there's momentum going. Now, Oklahoma's going to be a lagger on that, probably, which feeds into my second point. I am not so the second point is that the reputation of the Democratic Party is terrible. I'll just be honest with you. People, they're negative on the Democrats. They say, "Oh, you're a Democrat, I've never voted for you." And my response to that is, and I don't want to fight them on it, because some of our reputation is well earned, because we have, in some cases, abandoned them. We're focused on the marginal issues that don't matter. Everyday Oklahomans, farmers, ranchers, and cattle producers down in the south part of my district. So we can kind of earn that. But the truth is, we have not. I'm not your party guy. I've been a Democrat ever since I started voting, and so I'm a Democrat in my history. But I'm in the party, not of the party. I guess is the best way to put it. And when folks say I hate the Democrats, I say that's fair. If that's your starting position, let's talk and you understand where I'm coming from. What are my values? What drives me every day? And I think I have made a pretty compelling case to folks that I'm not the boogeyman that they have been trained to fear in the form of Nancy Pelosi or Jeff Crockett, or pick the person they consider extreme. I'm just a guy who spent my whole life serving our country and sees that I've been called to continue to do so just in a different capacity.
Yes.
The response I get when I say that is generally pretty good. A few people say, "Okay, you got me, I'm going to vote for you." But I had a guy tell me, he said, after about a 10-minute conversation, he said, "If you were running as a Republican in this Tom poll, I might vote for you." And I said, "Sir, don't you think I know that?" Of course I could have pretended to be a Republican. I'm a middle-aged white guy with 30 years in the military. I could have totally passed. But that would have been founded on a lie, and you're just going to have to accept me for who I am, and trust me when I go to Washington, D.C., I'm going to do everything in my power to represent everybody in our community. And the only red lines I have are my core values. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to steal. I'm not going to enrich myself. I'm I'm gonna do my best to represent folks. And if I don't do a good job of that, because I'm not a millionaire and I'm not gonna create a big multi-million-dollar war chest to make me become it and can never be beat again, if I don't do a good job, they'll vote me out too. And if I stand on my principles while doing so, then it will be time well spent, and the next person will be better than me, which I know. So politicized public education for every person who lives inside our borders, I chose my words carefully there, is important for the future of our country. Not only because we're just preparing people to be, you can take it from maybe the right perspective, preparing them to be productive members of society, which equals, drones who make things, right? So I don't believe that's really the case, but we need to prepare people to be successful in our world. But we also need to raise critical thinkers and future leaders. And public education can do that. I'm a product of public education. All of my kids are products of public education, and I had the benefit. I was in the same school district my whole life, but because of my nomadic military career, my kids went to school in Oklahoma, New Mexico, Texas, Georgia, South Carolina, and Texas. So spread across kind of the southern United States, and all in public schools. And in every case, there were challenges, of course, because of politics, but quality teachers, quality education, if it's funded. And the fight that's been going on for years about taking funding from schools to offer it for vouchers to go to private schools or charter schools is to me, a completely transparent attempt to undermine public education, to finance kids who are already going to go to private school anyway and just make it cheaper. It's basically a money shift. And it makes, not only does it make the school district's job harder and the teacher's job harder to lose funding, you also lose something, I would say the word, I'm not afraid to say this, lose diversity of attendance in your classroom. If you have a classroom that is a very narrow slice of our society, whether it's in school or at that private academy where it's its own narrow slice of society, all those kids are worse off. They're going to have when are they ever going to understand other people's perspectives? When are they ever going to be able to see the world through somebody else's eyes if you don't let them do it in school? So I'm not saying private schools shouldn't exist, but I don't want my tax dollars going to fund a private school. I want great public schools. In fact, when I went to South Carolina, in Sumter, South Carolina, the public schools had a terrible reputation. I told people I was going to live an hour away. So I was going to commute an hour each way to make sure my kids went to a good public school. Someone said, no, just put them in the private school. Everybody's in the private school here. I said, I'm not going to pay property taxes to fund a public school and then not send my kids to it. If it's good enough to take my tax dollars, it should be good enough for my kids to go to. So I'm a firm believer in it. I think what we've done in Oklahoma, the national issue is a clear case of them not valuing teachers, not valuing public education. The larger perspective, I think, of not liking government and trying to make it as small as possible and break it. Actions every day suggest to me that there are people in power right now whose main objective when they wake up in the morning is to tear down our government. They don't want it to function. They are sabotaging every way, looking for loopholes that exist in the legislature, the executive branch, and the Supreme Court. So when the U.S. Department of Education, who doesn't day-to-day, not giant influence on classroom, that's a state level issue, but a lot of the marching orders come up from on top, and that idea, that perspective of it being, that it's this area where kids are being taught the wrong things or indoctrinated into some. The truth is that I think they're revealing what really is in their head by that accusation. The truth is a good public education with well-paid teachers who don't have to fork out money from their own pockets to have a classroom with a robust curriculum that explores our history unflinchingly, is not afraid to look at the darker things in our past so we don't make the same mistakes. That's what I grew up in, and it wasn't perfect, but I think we've drifted so far away from that now, and it becomes I don't know if we're at a tipping point, but it's really hard to recruit teachers. It's really hard to recruit quality teachers who have that perspective, especially if you're not going to pay much. But if you're, I think teaching, as I've seen in my life, teaching seems to be a calling. People are called to teach, but even if you're called to teach, it's really hard to stomach it when you don't feel valued, or if you can't put food on the table. And now instead we have people that are unqualified or haven't achieved the certifications. They may be maybe they have it in their hearts, but they're not prepared to go to a classroom to be successful. We really have to focus on that, and the state's education change is a difference, but we have a lot of work to do. But teachers should be paid more, and public schools should be the primary focus. And parents have input. Parents should be able to influence the curriculum. I don't like the idea that our textbooks what our Texas decides is what you end up having to teach. I don't trust Texas. That's why I left Texas. One of those things. I'm a big fan of public education, and I'm a living proof that you do one to really impressive things, and you never have to go to public school not for once.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
What's your thoughts on the government actually attempting to weaken the National Labor Relations Act and starting to talk about a national right to work?
Yeah, right. Obviously, I don't need to say in this room, right to work is a problem, and it is I'll preface this by saying, because I was in the military my whole adult life, I've never been a union member. So what I mostly got in my military career, perspective-wise, from my teammates in the Air Force tends to be fairly conservative, as actually most military branches are. There was a lot of poo-pooing of and distrust of unions. When they talk about problems in our country, they would fall for the lines from the right saying unions, make things too expensive and it makes it hard to run a business. I would hear that and I would take it in, and because I wasn't political at work, I would just grit my teeth and scream in my pillow. A lot of my friends, though, it's funny how when my friends who were flying fighters with me when they left the Air Force and went to fly for Delta Airlines, right into the union immediately, enthusiastically, membership of the union. Why? Because they know once you see the benefits of being a member of the union, it's beneficial for you right now. You all know that the history of our country, the strength of our economy, and some of the great strides we've made over the years to protect workers, to make the workers safe, to not allow the people who make this country run to be exploited, is because of unions. Right to work is obviously a naked attack on that, under the auspices of not trying to twist someone's arm into paying for something they don't want to pay for it. Okay, fair, maybe you can make that argument. I think the idea of union representation being self-sustaining, that is, good union behavior tends to motivate people to join a union and be a part of it, and then if it spreads across other industries, that's an improvement. I was a little bit surprised as I learned about this to see how a survey of union members suggests that many current union members, if they could make the choice, would not join a union. And as I tried to analyze that, it seems to me like that metaphor of pulling a ladder up behind you. I have all the benefits of having been a union member now, but not for you. And I don't understand that, and maybe you'll get educated on why that might be the case. But national right to work, I think there's a possibility that could be imposed by the government, and I think there are examples within all industries of unions being effective and being attractive and doing all the things that they promise. But I think we were talking beforehand, there's compromises, and promising utopia and falling short is not, we shouldn't promise utopia if you can't get there. And I think the idea is those opposed to unions create a straw man about union membership that's pretty easy to knock down, which is kind of the point of it. So I would be opposed to national right to work. And I think publicly shaming companies who refuse to unionize or punish efforts to unionize. Walmart's a great example. My wife and I have stopped shopping at Walmart more than a decade ago because the way they treat their employees. I think success breeds success, but it'll continue to be a battle. And I think with every union success, there's more ammunition to use, assuming that people will listen. People often fall into traps of believing the things they already want to believe. They only listen to news they only want to hear. Maybe they only see news that they already agree with. So that'd be the challenges among your membership to diverse membership to sing the praises of the union and show that it's working.
Okay.
I think just for your education, Jeff, one of the biggest rubs that we have with right to work as union members is we still have to represent those people that are not members. Now, if they didn't get the same representation or have to have the same representation or receive the benefits that the union negotiates for its members, we wouldn't have so much of a problem with it. We're the only organization that you don't have to join, that you can reap the benefits from.
Yeah, I think whoever invented that way to slice the pie was really, really sinister in my mind. And I can imagine a world, so broadly speaking, you know, the union, when it comes to worker safety, I know that the union cares about every worker's safety. When it comes to negotiating for pay raises or benefits or renegotiating contracts, I do have a problem with someone not pitching in their fair share and getting to ride along and enjoy the benefits. And maybe that's the reason that statistic, I didn't quote a statistic, but that study about people that would pull up the ladder, I can imagine that's probably why they said, well, why would I do it if I did this? My neighbor who works next to me gets everything. And I don't know how much percentage out of every paycheck goes to pay union dues, but I know it's an investment. I know it's an investment that's worth doing. That everybody who does it knows that it's money well spent, assuming that the unions aren't crushed by the government or by the corporation.
Every time, all the old years that we had new contractors, we have every 3 to 5 years. The first person that came out and actually focused on it.
I believe it. It's,
Okay, I know Dennis didn't want to go as long, so we will wrap this thing up. If people want to contact you, how do they go about it?
So I have cards here. So my website is called pixleyforcongress.com. It's spelled Pixley, a word for congress.com, all one word. And I'm also on all the social medias. On my website, you click the button and link to my social medias. But basically everything's Pixley for Congress. There's an email address on the back of my card, info@pixleyforcongress.com. That goes to me right now. So if you have a question, you can send it to me. That will be me answering it. I don't have a robot army doing that for me, not yet. And I would be happy to talk to a smaller group, a larger group. And I didn't really give you the opportunity this time, but as I said, I don't have a union history. So there's a lot I don't know, and I am more than willing to be educated on things I don't understand fully, because I think politicians who pretend to know everything is maybe part of the problem. So I'm not going to pretend I know everything. But I can offer you is I will always tell you the truth.